is Lauren, and I'm going to walk you through everything I made in my first 6 months of knitting. The very first thing I made was the Tuesday top by Nat Cantu. This project I kind of picked because I knew it would be easy. It's just knit and purl stitches. It's panel construction, so you make the front, you make the back, they're exactly the same. And it is a made to measure pattern, which was especially helpful because I was using gifted yarn. My best friend Sarah, they knit and we were talking about it and they were like, well, if you want to learn, I'll teach you the basics and send you with some yarn to do a project with. So they gifted me this yarn, which I knew at the time was generous, but I don't think I realized how generous it is to give multiple skeins of, this is an alpaca yarn. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but it is a alpaca blend, I believe. The color is beautiful. It is quite warm and ultimately a little itchy. I knew, or I had the suspicion that a lot of wool was going to be itchy. This alpaca is not quite as bad. I can wear it for a few hours before it really starts to irritate me. This top was very quick to make. I made it on 6mm needles, so it worked up quickly. I was able to use the supplies that Sarah so graciously gifted me, and it started a knitting journey for me. However, I don't wear this top very much. A lot of it is just because of the yarn, not finding it super comfortable close to skin. Also, I was especially worried about the finished product of the fabric being a little see-through, and I don't think I actually needed to be that worried about it, but I never done it before, and so I was. And so I held the yarn double, and that has resulted in still a nice fabric, but it's very warm and not really that suitable for a tank top. So all of those things combined, the yarn not being my personal favorite choice and also not being the best choice for the project, as well as because I held it double, it is a little bit more cropped than I would love. All those things considered, I don't wear this very much. One day, who knows, maybe I will frog it and make something that's a little bit more suitable for the yarn, because I do love the color, I love the variation, and I love having a handmade knit that would somewhat match my best friend. So I like all of those things, but this has not been a most worn item, but it got me into it, and for that reason, mistakes and all, I am happy with it. The next project that I worked on was this ridge tank. This is by the Bluebird Pine shop, and I picked it out because I had thrifted this yarn. It's from Ice Yarns. It's one of their cottons. I thrifted it at my local restore. They had a ton of it, and I loved the red color. And I thought that it would work well for that tank. And this is, to date, my favorite thing that I've ever made. I find the 100% cotton extremely comfortable, has a nice drape, and really works well for the tank top. You're able to see that beautiful ridge pattern of the knits and purls really well. This was also nice for me at the time because it is, you know, knits and purls with some basic increases and decreases. So helpful for that. And then the main kind of new technique I learned was I-cord edging. That is one thing that the Tuesday top, it's just, all of the edges are just your cast on or cast offs. This, so the finishing of that top doesn't look a particular way. Whereas this, with all of the I-cord edging, I feel like looks really clean, really neat. I get a lot of compliments when I wear this top, and overall it was fun to make. little needles. I believe I used 3mm needles on it, so it did take me a decent bit, but I love the finished product. I would be happy to make another one of these tanks. The alterations that I did to the pattern, I believe I did add some extra length in the underarm. This top is made top down, and so really I was just kind of holding it against myself to kind of measure how big I wanted the arm's eye to be. And overall, I'm super happy with the fit, really happy with the yarn choice and the finishings, and really love how this one turned out. After making the ridge tank and working with really small needles for quite a while, I decided I wanted to do something that might be a little bit quicker. And when I was visiting family in Nashville, I stopped by Turnip Green Creative Reuse, which is an amazing secondhand craft store in Nashville. And I picked up I believe it was just 2 skeins of yarn from the Plucky Knitter. This is some sort of wool blend. Again, I'm not sure because it's thrifted exactly what all is in it. But with that, I decided to make the Scythe Hood Scarf by Naiad Knits. This is a mostly garter stitch project with, I believe, a double knit edge band. And this was a nice project for what I wanted, which was, let's use this thrifted yarn and let's make something that will go a little bit quicker, still have something new to it, but just kind of a nice project to watch while watching, or a nice project to work on while watching Survivor. So this is what I picked, and overall, like I said, good for what I wanted out of the project. However, this is not something that I have worn very much. I did finish it at the end of March, so things here in Vermont were kind of getting out of weather where you would need hats all of the time. I got a few days worth of wear out of it, but hasn't been able to be super useful yet. I'll see how much more I use it in the coming fall and winter. Yeah, overall, I made it. I think it works. The coloring is not one that I particularly love, especially up close to my face. But again, it was a thrifted yarn. I was happy to use it for a project, and we'll see come winter if this becomes more of a favorite or more of a useful item for me. The next project that I cast on was the Bedruthen top by, I believe it's Iris H. I'll link all of the patterns below. But this top took me a very long time. I put it down for a while and started another project. But this was yarn that I had bought for myself for Christmas. This is knit in Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in Ice Blue, and I do love the color of this project. The main detail that I really loved was the scalloped edge of the front V-neck. Overall though, this was not my favorite thing to make. Just working in the 2x2 rib, I found very unengaging, and it really kind of felt like a slog. I did do a few pattern modifications. I added an extra step on the V-neck just because I wanted it a little bit lower and it was seeming that it would not be. I also did a little extra to add some overall length and width to the arm's eyes. And for the length, I did go for a cropped length. I had extra yarn, and if I had been enjoying the knitting process a little more, I probably would have made this top a bit longer, but I was not really enjoying the knitting process. And so once it got to a point that I felt like it was a suitable length, I decided to stop. This top did grow quite a bit with blocking. The pattern states that this is the pattern recommended yarn. And with that, I am happy that I made those adjustments and adding the extra step on the V and adding some extra width to the arm's eyes. But overall, this shirt doesn't quite fit how I thought it would based on the pattern photos and other project photos on Ravelry. Maybe that was just, you know, my own image of what it was going to be. It didn't turn out like. Maybe it was something with how it came together for me. I'm not sure, but I was a little disappointed at first because I felt like I said, it just didn't look how I thought it was going to. But after having worn it a few times, I have really enjoyed this top. It's very breezy. The silk is very light and comfortable. I do love the color that I chose for it, and overall am quite happy with it. The yarn does not, or I believe it's something with the yarn, maybe with my attention, it does not quite as clean of a look as, say, the Ridge Tank that I knit up in the cotton. So maybe that is just a difference in the cotton and silk. Maybe it was my attention as I worked on this 2x2 rib. I'm not sure. The main things with this pattern that I did learn was a loose or stretchy bind off that I found really helpful, quite easy to do, and did make it to where this top is entirely comfortable to wear. Like I said, overall quite happy with this project now, although it has kind of scared me off from doing anything that is a heavy rib pattern for a while, at least in small needles like this project uses. And that brings us to the Julep Cami. This is a pattern made by Brianna Mason, and I saw it and I love in her original sample photos, the color work pattern is in, I think, 5 or so different colors against a cream main color. And I just thought it was so pretty. And I thought that this would be a really fun way to start the journey into doing some amount of color work. So this top is made on, I believe, either 5 or 6 millimeter needles. I used Valley Yarn's Goshen yarn, which I love. Of all of the tanks, this is kind of the one that feels the best on my skin. The Cotton Ridge tank is extremely comfortable, but this one just feels really nice. It is made using stranded color work to create this nice little pattern. Overall, this was a really quick knit, especially compared to the Bitterroot and Cami that I was working on at the same time, and I kind of wanted a break from, so that's why I cast on this top. It was quite engaging with, you know, switching the colors. It's also, besides the color work and besides the straps and the ribbing at the bottom, it's entirely stockinette, so something that is quite easy to kind of plow through. And overall, I have really enjoyed wearing this. I did make the I-cord straps a little too long, or they have stretched out, so right now I've just been knotting them up as I wear them. Maybe at some point I will go back and shorten them a bit. The other issue I had with this tank, and this is something that I think as I get better at knitting, will hopefully not have this problem, but there is a kind of a decent demarcation where my round was for knitting this in the round, but you know, that's hidden under the arm, so I'm not too worried about it. This top is also my husband's favorite top that I've knitted, so that does feel nice. This one also is perhaps a little, maybe 2 inches shorter than I kind of intended it to be. I do have extra yarn, and so after I was making the straps, because this is made bottom up, I was a little frustrated. I was like, oh, I could have made this longer, but after having worn it a bit, it's actually quite fine and works with most all of my bottoms, so hasn't been an issue. But I do have some yarn left over, and I would love to see if maybe I could squeeze another top out of that, or just do something else with that yarn, because like I said, I do really love the feel of it. I loved knitting with it, and if I ever find any Valley yarns again, especially secondhand, which is where I got that yarn to begin with, I would love to pick it up. Okay, well that is everything I made in my first 6-ish months of knitting, everything I cast on in the first 6 months or so. And overall, starting knitting has been so incredibly fun. I am a costume designer and a sewist, but in my current living space, sewing is just not very conducive. We have a very small 1-bedroom apartment, and I don't have a good place to set up a sewing machine, and trying to cut anything would kind of be a nightmare. So having knitting be a project that can be pretty contained, that I can just sit on my couch and do, has been so incredibly fun. It's been really fulfilling to be able to make wearables, but not have it take up as much space as sewing often does for me. So that has been really encouraging, really fun, and overall I have really liked the things that I have made. So I'm looking forward to what all I make in my next 6 months. I have made one other little tube top that I might end up frogging, but we'll talk about that at another time. And then I'm working on the rosary jumper. So my first sweater right now, and I'm maybe 3/5 of the way through that. So I'm getting there and having a really good time. So we will see what all I get up to. But in the meantime, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about any of these projects and if you've made them and how they turned out. I'd love to hear, and I'll see you next time.